Welcome back to the show, guys. Today I got a special episode for you. Me and this guest, we kind of like been vibing, just running on. I think like it's already had a 15-minute conversation, so I'm gonna have to do some edits to put this in the front and the other parts in the other parts. But anyways, I've been watching this man's content for forever now. I think it's been like 5 years at least now. He's posted a lot of inspiring stuff. He was actually Joe Rogan had posted some of his clips, which is kind of crazy because he's sitting here next to me now. I feel like he's like a movie star. But he's a kung fu expert. This man, he's been studying kung fu for a very long time, studying Tai Chi. He runs a gym out in Hollywood. I'll get you the name of that. I forgot to ask. But please welcome to the show, Sefu Carlo.
Thank you.
Sefu
Thank
Carlo.
you, Mo.
Thank you, Sefu. Thanks for coming on, man.
It is an honor. It is an honor. So thank you. You know, even tackling the hard issues. Like I've been watching videos for years. Right?
Yeah.
About kung fu, right? Saying that all the kung fu practitioners get beaten up.
Yeah.
you know, and I can't. I'm not the best with names, right?
Uh-huh.
But there's a MMA practitioner in China. Right.
Oh yeah. What's his name? Starts with a D, right? Yeah, I know. And he goes around beating people up. He got banned from trains and all that.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I think he's doing a great thing. I think he's doing a good thing. There's definitely some cultural aspects, and there's definitely some things I don't understand. Right. But as far as doing what he loves and what he's here to do, 100%. And I think bringing a little bit more legitimacy to, upping your game, looking at what you've learned, I think is important, right? Mm-hmm. From what I've seen, he doesn't seem like a bad guy, right? He's pushing or yelling in people's faces or whatever the case may be. So, that's one of the things, right? And so I think that's a very big, important topic is legitimacy.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that martial arts, you need to be tested, and it's good to be tested within your own martial art. That's why we have competitions. But I think the best way to grow your martial art in terms of technique is to test it against other arts. Because, like, dude, even what's that one Chinese martial art? The Tai Chi, right? Tai Chi. Yeah. I'm sure there's something from Tai Chi that you could take. Maybe the stretching aspect of it, maybe like just being able to flow. It's obviously like if in a combative situation, it's probably the lowest on the totem pole. Like you're not going to learn a lot of self-defense, but there's always something you could take from it and you can adapt it to a new style. And that's how you become better as a martial artist, is you don't want to be chained to like these, like to like one style and one way of doing things. And that's the thing why I like Muay Thai, bro. I started with Taekwondo and I did that for years, bro. And Taekwondo is very traditional. You know how like the senseis, they don't even want you training at other dojos of Taekwondo. They get really mad, bro. I did it and my sensei made me feel really bad about it. Okay. But he's always like, this is our dojo. The only exception is if like you go to another dojo that has the same lineage, like, how in Taekwondo, like the belt system, it's like you go, you do the belt system with other schools, but they're all part of the same lineage, So it's like, that's acceptable. Like you go over to this dojo, which is like my friend's dojo. Anyways, Muay Thai though, it's, you see a lot of traditionalists that are like that. But one thing that is with Muay Thai is in the 90s, you had like the whole boxing thing come over, and then you had the Dutch kickboxing era. And because of that, the Thai fighters, they had to adapt, And so they started picking up boxing. Boxing became really popular in Thailand. Nowadays, it's very rare you see a Thai fighter that doesn't do boxing. It's just like, usually you'll do Muay Thai, you'll start off with that. Once you get kind of good at it, you'll kind of start cross-training with boxing. Every Muay Thai school, I know they do both the traditional style and they'll teach you the Dutch style,
Okay.
And so it's like that's, and I think there's still more things that Muay Thai could learn from that, like especially with the sweeps. Like when I saw the Chinese, Sanshu, it's basically Muay Thai, but they allowed wrestling takedowns. And I'm just like, dude, this is a whole, like just being able to grab the leg and actually pull them down. I was like, that changes the game so much, bro. Even in the clinch, it's like, you can't really just rely on being in the clinch for too long because they'll just grab your leg and single leg you, So it changes like how you move your hips and stuff. Anyways, so I think it's as a martial artist, it's like you should be able to face other styles. And back to what we were talking about with that guy from China, it's I think what he's doing is what martial arts is supposed to be, And then we lost that. I feel like in the 90s, it was always like you saw the shows like Street Fighter, or these guys are fighting the different styles and all that, And then we kind of like went away from that, and now it's all about money and sticking to your dojo and whatever, very commercialized. I feel like. Anyways,
no.
That's stuff we should save for the interview. But we'll go back to it. I'll probably cut that and clip it in. That was good. We're already rolling, bro. See, I already like you, dude. Sefu Carlo. I know this is gonna go good, man.
Oh, thank you, Mo. No, thank you. Even now, I go by Instructor Carlo. Right?
Okay.
And if on the Instagram, I still maintain the Sefu. Right?
Do you want to go by instructor instead, or like coach or something, or Sefu kind of weird?
No, Sefu Carlo is great. It's okay.
Okay.
But it also, we can talk about it too. It's just the journey, right? And yeah, I'm all good.
All right, you ready to get? I'm turning up the AC.
You know, but I think there's lots of lessons to be learned. You know, and that's the other thing too. If you don't have perspective, you're lost, right?
Yeah.
Being from SoCal, you know, being myself, I think the first thing we always look at is, you know, race, right? Or gender, or whatever the case may be, right? You know, I had and I'll bring up Sefu Ray a lot. Sefu Ray was one of the instructors I trained with, and actually the reason why I wear the socks, right?
Yeah.
And you know, he said, if you look like an easy target, you should take martial arts. Right? You should learn how to defend yourself. So, and I've always kept to that. And it's nothing offensive. I don't think anyone should take that to heart, right? But that's life, right?
Oh, for real.
And
the smallest pig gets eaten first, you know?
Yeah.
Usually, bro, you know, the tiger looks at that motherfucker like, you can't run fast, you know? 4 legs.
Yeah. And, you know, even, you know, it's natural for us to size people up, and especially as dudes, you know, you're going into a situation and things like that. You know, even coming here, dude, I see, you know, a big guy, you know, it's like you can hold your own, right?
Yeah.
And so that's also the mental thing, right? Is, but if let's say you see someone and, right, it looks like you take them, whatever, you have this thought, right? And it happens all the time, right? It happens with people who get robbed or whatever the case may be. I've seen YouTube videos where, you know, the bigger guy comes in, 1 or 2 or whatever the case may be, coming in to attack someone who's smaller. And the next thing you know, the guy pulls out a gun.
Oh, yeah, dude, that's the ultimate equalizer right there. I was going to say, if you look like a victim by gun, this is probably the fastest, easiest way to take care of that problem, right? Martial arts takes a long time, you know?
100%. 100%, right? But it's not necessarily in the size, right? You see a lot of guys who have a lot of heart, and it goes into different arenas, right? You know, and I'm just thinking of like past memories, right? Even come here, I'm just thinking of because growing up, you know, I was on the good side of things, right? I try to do good in school. I try to, you know, for the most part. Okay, I had my issues, and then eventually went a better route, right? And but I saw some fools who used to swab the deck, you know. And one kid I went to school with, I just remember he was smaller than everyone, right? Than most of the other kids. The kid got in like 8 or 9 fights, and just had he was a tiger, you know what I'm saying? So I think that's very important.
Yeah. You gotta learn to defend yourself. You gotta learn to defend yourself so you're not a target. Be able to protect your loved ones, but it's also like just being able to roam around knowing you're not a target. You know, it's a different type of freedom. You know.
Yes, and I want to correct you on just one thing. You will be a target, right? You're learning because that's going to happen, and when that happens, it's a mistake for the other person.
Right. Yeah. You're always going to be a target. That's a good point. But being able to know that if things happen, that you're the confidence, right? That's important. Especially because, dude, like I used to be bullied, bro. When I was a kid, I'm small, bro. So I used to get bullied. I got being up in front of like a bunch of people at school and stuff. So I remember like when I started being the one that was able to beat other people up, dude. It makes you a lot of a way nicer. I used to be so angry. I just think it was because I was weak, you know, honestly. And then once I got like more bigger and more stronger, you know, I became more serious about training, you know. I just became a lot nicer, bro, honestly. And maybe it was the marijuana too. I smoke a lot of marijuana, so combination of the two, you know.
You know what? My lady had to explain to me California sober.
Yeah. I mean, you just smoke weed because I used to do a lot of other drugs, but I pretty much just smoke weed now. In a previous life, but
no, you know, fitness is a, you know, I don't want to say it's the end all be all, right? But it really does help to set better patterns, right?
definitely.
And geez, you know, to point the finger or say perfection or even people there, but you know, perfection is not the right. I think that when it comes down to improving yourself, improving your mind, it all comes back in a circle, right? Because you want to go and learn how to defend yourself. And then that's where the legitimacy comes in, right? And we were talking about being cool and flashy. I think cool and flashy kills the martial art, right? Because if you've looked at the patterns, you know, first in the 70s, Kung Fu came in the 80s, it was karate. You've heard this kind of thing about, and in the 90s, MMA. It's like, but if you just follow the trend, it's going to leave you stuck. You know, the true martial artist is always evolving. And I want to share a similar story, right? That, you know, I'm big on Kung Fu. I'm big on Tai Chi. I have wrestling and grappling experience from various different schools, right? And I'll explain that a little bit. But one of my first instances of wanting to really learn how to defend myself was when I was about 13, a kid got me in the mount, a full mount, and literally just drilled me in front of everyone.
Did he know? Like, did he have training, or was it just he just kind of naturally knew what to do?
He got into that position like it was and I was stupid. Okay, that's the other thing is that kids were egging it on, and you know you should be smart. I should have just walked away. There's lots of other things you could do. Okay, but again, not having that experience probably wouldn't have led me to the journey, right? So getting in that full mount and then getting beaten up in front of a girl that you like all throughout, you know, you're like, oh my God, like that's why I understand these kids, like growing up is tough, right?
Yeah.
But still coming from the traditional arts and wanting to study those and being in that full mount was my first experience of, hey, I want to learn how to get out of this, right? That's why I love Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and credit Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you know, for tackling that, right? Because ground fighting was not something that was tackled. And, you know, it's something that we all have to learn, right? Or you might be in that position. So, you know, I just, you know, you get these questions. Have you ever been hit before? Have you ever been, oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, being on the ground and having someone dominate you on the ground, that's like a different type of scary, you know, because it's just involves so much like knowledge that it's like trying to drive a manual car and you've never even driven an automatic car and you're just on the freeway now. You're like, what do I do? You know what I mean?
Oh, forget it.
Yeah. I was training jujitsu under Legacy Jiu-Jitsu in Santa Ana. I still have a good relationship with Legacy, but I did that for a few years, and I'd wanted to get into MMA. I was like, I want to do MMA, but I remember, like, dude, I had already been doing striking for like 10 years by this point, you know? So I was like, obviously my striking was just a lot better than everyone in that class. And those guys were all doing MMA too, you know? Legacy is more of an MMA guy than just a pure jiu-jitsu guy. But I remember I was rolling with this dude. Well, I can't remember his name. He's about my size. And he had only been doing jiu-jitsu for like 2 years or something. He was still a white belt at the time, I believe. I think he had 2 stripes. This was my first year in, but I had like all these other years of martial arts experience. I was in way better shape than him, you know? So I was like, all right, he's going to outskill me for sure. But I was like, but I'll be able to, like, I'm in better shape than him. I should be able to survive and roll around and just kind of scramble and work my way out, you know? Anyways, this dude, the second he grabs me, he just takes me down. I can't fight it off. And he lands in full mount every time. I can't do anything about it. And he's either like, I was able to hold on to my limbs and not get like armbarred, you know, or choked. But I was like, if this was MMA, he would have just punched me in the face till I died. You know what I mean?
Oh,
and you know what I mean? And so it's like, like I said, just the technical skill involved with grappling is just a different type of monster. It's definitely something everyone should learn a little bit, at least, just the basics.
No. And on top of that, here's the thing too. If you're a striker, right, you're probably going to gravitate more towards that. That's just your natural base. Doesn't mean you can't develop that skill. And another thing I want to point out is maybe, you mentioned about having the great striking ability, right? And I wonder, do you credit that from Taekwondo, right? Because I feel every martial art has something that they really excel at. I really appreciate Taekwondo practitioners for their flexibility, right? And their ability to land kicks at different angles.
No, yeah, you're right. I did Taekwondo for a number of years when I was younger. It's a great sport to start off as a kid. I think if you're already like 16, 20, maybe you just skip it or maybe do it on the side in private, like take privates for whatever you want to learn, like spinning kicks and all the cool stuff. But as a kid, it's a great tool because you develop the flexibility and the speed. The speed that you train at Taekwondo is completely different than in Muay Thai. You're always on your toes and you're darting in and out, and the range that you learn how to control your range a lot better. It's something that Thai fighters kind of struggle with. You see them, they're just used to like balling up, and they kind of march forward, and you'll see them swing super hard and they miss and they're all off balance now because the guy moved like 2 inches back, In Taekwondo, you're way more like able to dart in and dart out. I mean, even to this day, it's like when I spar and stuff. It's very rare that I stay flat-footed. I'm constantly changing stances. It's just something that I was bred to me in Taekwondo. And when I teach classes for Spider, like whenever my coach asked me to run a class, I'm always teaching people like fundamentals of Taekwondo that I mixed with Muay Thai, So it'll be a class where I'll be like, all right, today everyone's going their opposite stance. Like we're gonna do basic combinations, but I want you guys to get comfortable doing it from the opposite stance, And that's something that you do in Taekwondo from day one. They always teach you like how to work both stances, from white belt to black belt. But yeah, to answer your question, yeah, dude, I think Taekwondo definitely helped me build a strong foundation for Muay Thai. But I love Muay Thai way more than Taekwondo, man. I fell in love, dude. I told the story so many times, but I got beat up by a dude in high school that did Muay Thai, and we became like best friends. And from there, that started my Muay Thai journey. I was able to accept like this skill is better than the skill I learned because at the time I was way more dedicated to Taekwondo than he was to Muay Thai. I was still training actively. I'd wanted to go into Olympics and all this stuff. That was going to be my end goal. This dude, he learned Muay Thai when he was growing up, and he didn't even train at a gym anymore. He just kind of like learned it and then just kind of like he was Laos. That's kind of like what people from Southeast Asia do. But he was out of shape, dude, drinking and smoking. And then, my other homie Trey was like, "Oh, you both know martial arts. You should fight." And so I remember we fought. I kicked him, bro, and he just ate the kicks and he was punching me in the face. You can't punch in Taekwondo to the face, so that was a whole new concept, He took me down. He swept me a few times, and then I just was like, afterwards, I was like, "Yo, what was that?" And he's like, "Muay Thai," and I was like, "Can you teach me?" And then we became best friends after that, But yeah, let me get you an introduction though. We've just been running and talking, dude. We just skipped the introduction, so I'm gonna add it in now, and then I'll cut it. I'm gonna add a clap though. Yeah, it's kind of weird because we already were talking, and then we had to get to the introduction. My bad. I should have done it from the beginning, but we just didn't want to kill the vibe,
100%, 100%. It's great talking. I love speaking with another martial artist. And I love hearing your story too.
Thank you.
So, if anything, I think humility, we touched on a lot of things, humility, right? The ability to say, hey, you know what? There's things I want to learn, right? Integration and limitation, right? Those are all three things, right? With the humility aspect, I think one of the things I've always done, right, is there's talk about sparring, right? I know in boxing and Muay Thai, and I want to say karate, but those two specifically, I know sparring is lifeblood, right? I've seen karate combat. I think combat is great. I think the other sports, kung fu, and maybe some of the other arts, some of the schools here in the U.S. maybe moved away from that, right? When I first started training in wushu was my first kung fu art, right? Then I started with tai chi maybe a month later, and then 2 months later I started with eagle claw, right? and those have been my base styles. But with the Eagle Claw, one of the first things we did was we sparred that very first day. My instructor was from Hong Kong, and
real stuff.
100%
from the motherland.
100%. And it's the timing is interesting because there was a passing recently of a very, very famous Eagle Claw instructor who passed away and it's credited to bringing the style here to the United States. Okay, I think he taught the Lao sisters. The lineage starts with him. Okay, and his name's Liam Shum, and I never had the privilege of learning under him. Okay, but the whole point is that there's many students who come under him and under that system, but it's not the only, right? The only branch. And so my instructor came under the Chinwoo system, came here, and it was very forms and very straight to the point. And I got a chance to see his fighting ability. Like, okay, like he just whooped me up. Yeah. You know, so that's always been a part of the training.
Yeah. Can you explain the differences between the three styles that you just brought up?
Yeah, no. Long fist wushu, also known as Chung Chuan, right, is more of the contemporary new age kung fu. They call it performance kung fu, right, because it's derived from from long fist, a traditional kung fu style, but they do more of the forms for performance. Right? Now, with that, I took a look at the system. As I was studying things and learning the movements, I noticed that, you know, a lot of these movements could be adapted. Okay, you utilize things how you need them, right? Such as Sifu Bruset, right? So with that, you know, it has it's really good for the physical aspects, right? There's a lot of runs and jumps and kicks, and that's where I credit the flexibility, right? Because I noticed my flexibility from wushu was much better than other practitioners from other styles, right? And I still see it now, like in terms of there are certain things, even as men, we typically, our hamstrings are going to be, I'm just saying in general, right? But our hamstrings are going to be a little bit more tighter because they're more muscular, like that. That's why the flexibility may not be there completely, right? Maybe easier for some people than others, right? But it's that muscle tightness. So what the style helped to do is to develop flexibility, okay? Tai Chi is interesting because it's one of my favorite styles, right? And to be honest, it's actually helped me to in a street fight.
Is it? I thought Tai Chi was like a dance. I thought that was like more of like a type. From when I see it, they're always kind of like doing this type of thing, you know? I don't understand it. That's my bad if I'm not relaying what I see properly, you know?
Not at all. Not at all. If anything, it's my job to explain it, right? And it's the job of the practitioner to present it and be trained well enough to say, this is authentic, this works. So I know Tai Chi works because like a week before I got into that fight, and it was because of a friend who got himself in some stuff, and it was, these two guys that I had to fend off, right? And you know, first thing that went through my head was, okay, maybe they're gonna get shot, or the cops are just gonna take us all, right?
Yeah,
you know,
that's very valid, very valid thoughts. Yeah,
you know, I would say, and I know ghetto, I know hood, you know what I'm saying? But putting yourself in those situations, you know, I that's where I learned. I did the punching, the kicking. You know, it's funny because Tai Chi is a grappling art, right? It's more standing grappling. If old school jiu-jitsu is standing grappling.
Judo, right? Judo? Or slamming, I guess.
Both, right? Because judo comes from jiu-jitsu, and Brazilian jiu-jitsu comes from judo, right? which is interesting. First, so, but understanding, that's why I feel like with the integrations and the limitations, the integration is combining the arts, combining the cultures, right? Combining the ideas, right? And developing into something, right? Because I love studying martial arts history, and as much as you can remember, right? Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is very interesting, right? Because I had to like look up a couple things. Okay, Carlos Gracie passed it to Helio Gracie, who passed it to Royce. And how did it develop? Through practice and learning, and there's a lot of different things you can go into. Okay, even having a partner to practice with. A lot of, I think, the grappling arts have developed because you have a partner there where you can test everything that you have immediately. Okay. Whereas some of the standing arts, you're practicing on a bag, you're practicing alone. You don't get to test it until, or if you're at the gym, yes, right. You get to practice if you do your rounds and things like that. If you have a studio,
sparring.
That's
why sparring, I feel like, is kind of important, because you can test it not in the real world, but like you can test it against the actual body,
Yes. And it's important to have your own routine, right? I have a lot of friends who do wrestling and really gravitated to jiu-jitsu.
Right. That's like a natural progression. I feel like, instead of like going to like kickboxing or something, it's like, it's the same movements.
I don't want to give a shout out to my boy Vin,
Shout
Vin
out
Quay,
Vin. Let's go, Vin. Shout out Vin.
Just he's helped to introduce a lot of these concepts, especially opposites attract. If anything, I wasn't even the eagle claw. I didn't anticipate I was going to learn. Right. I didn't want to learn eagle claw. Right. When my instructor told me what I was going to learn. It's like, I want to teach you eagle claw. I don't because I was so mentally, I was still into just straight kick and punch.
Right. So what is the eagle claw? That's grappling, I'm assuming, or what?
Yeah, it's under a form of martial arts, under the Chinese martial arts system, Kung Fu system, which is called Chin Na, right? Another thing about my background is I have a background in acupuncture, right? And what that does is I think it enables you to learn about things. There's so much hate in the world right now, right? Instead of learning, right? Instead of going out there, I'm going to leave there, right? And one of the things that I appreciate is the experience, right? Because it was a different time, okay? I have love for all my teachers, right? My instructors, right? Who were there, took the time out, were a second father figure, and but the eagle claw, it's a lot of it is chin na, right? Which is just grabbing the joint locks.
Okay.
Now, here's the other thing too, is that when people first hear of like Kung Fu or anything like that, or if they think of joint locks, or they think like you're going to go for these small finger locks or things like that, the things that aren't allowed in the UFC, right?
Yeah.
Or like typical MMA competitions, right? Usually they allow big joint locks, like Kimura's, things like that, armbar, whatever the case may be, right? A lot of eagle claw depends on grabbing your opponent, right? Mm-hmm. Grabbing and seizing, right? So a lot of the movements I will do will focus on grabbing the wrist and then working from there, right?
Mm-hmm. So like wrist locks into like arm bars or something, I'm assuming?
Wherever you want to take it, right? A lot of it is, for instance, setting your opponent up, right? Because if you grab someone's wrist, there's gonna be a couple things they're gonna try to do. They're gonna try to break out, right? Or they're gonna try to swing, right? Or which then sets you up for the next movement, right? So a lot of it is set up. There's a lot of feinting, right? Sefu Bruce was into the feint, right? That's another thing, right? I mentioned Sefu Bruce, right? I call him Sefu Bruce, right?
Is that Bruce Lee?
Yes, sir.
Oh, you met Bruce Lee before? You met Bruce Lee?
No. It would have been an honor, right? but growing up, he was an inspiration. I don't think he's an inspiration for many. So
all martial artists across the board, boxing doesn't matter what it is, dude. Everyone looks up to Bruce Lee at some point in their life,
Yes. So you can't just take him for all yours, right?
Yeah, he's a cultural icon, man.
And understanding some of his, some of the things, because he's a big proponent of, like, when I read his book, I was still surprised of how much of the kung fu he kept, right? How much of the base, the story, he ended up venturing into boxing and wrestling,
karate too, fencing, karate, all this other stuff. Yeah.
Because he got in a fight and he's like, oh my God, like, I'm assuming what he said, but he realized that he needed to improve his base, that this one style wasn't going to work. And I had a chance to meet the person who told him to take up boxing, and his name is Leo Feng, and he passed away maybe a couple years ago, right?
R.I.P.
Yes, 100%. You look back and you're like, man, these experiences, there's lots of because we look at martial arts.
Leo Feng, was he Bolo in that kickboxing movie? Was it that Cambodian guy?
No, you mean Bolo Young, right?
Yeah. Because I saw, because he was Enter the Dragon, but he was in Bruce Lee's last movie. Was that Enter the Dragon? But I remember, that
and in Bloodsport.
Yeah, Bloodsport is where that was like his big time. That's where he got the big bucks,
100%.
I'm sorry for interrupting you. I just thought that might have been a connection, but yes.
No. It's important to look at a lot of these inspirations, a lot of things where we've been, right? Like, there's been everybody's really into the Karate Kid, right? And just the remakes, the series, so there's a lot of nostalgia, behind these things, right? Whether it just brings back good feelings or we learn from them, right? But looking at Leo Feng, his story is interesting too, because he wasn't a traditional martial artist, more of a fitness guy, boxing. And we were actually, I was a practitioner. I was doing acupuncture, and I was teaching a Tai Chi class this was the first clinic that I got started at, right? And got me started not first class, but first class I was kind of teaching on my own and really getting out there. And there were two classes. I was teaching a Tai Chi class, and he was teaching a class that was kind of based on functional fitness. It was some of the principles Tai Chi, but it focused a lot on like weight training and stuff like that. And I took one of the classes with him, and because I was like, okay, I just kind of want to learn a little bit more. And we were talking. He's like, yeah, I'm the guy who told Bruce Lee to take up boxing.
That's crazy. That's so crazy.
And and you wonder, like, oh man, okay, where are these stories coming from? A lot, Bruce spent a lot of time here in SoCal, right? There's a lot of practitioners from, Venice to the Valley, right? There's a big community here, right? Not only in just Southern California, but all across, right? But it gives you some perspective in terms of, a lot of people think that, and for other Kung Fu practitioners as well, I've seen practitioners. Oh, and that's where the socks come from, right? Because talk about lineage, I have lineage from different instructors, right? But it goes from Sefu Bruce to Dan Inosanto. And Dan Inosanto taught a lot of different other instructors. My instructor was Sefu Ray Manzan. So Ray Manzan studied under Dan Inosanto, and he wanted to meet. He told me he almost met Bruce, right? That was the thing. It's like there's always connections. Like,
I almost met him. What does the socks represent?
So here's the thing too, is that you are who you are, right? I appreciate Sefu Ray because he taught me a lot in terms of being a very legitimate Sefu, right? In terms of training and understanding locks and his style was Chen style Tai Chi, and he also taught drunken style, which you don't find around here. Right? And he was also in the Navy, right? So he has military background.
You don't find a lot of drunken style, but we see a lot of drunken people practice martial arts, you know? Go to LA, you'll see a lot of that, you know? But yeah. Jackie Chan's the only guy I ever known of that practiced that style. Now thinking about it.
Yes. You know, and Jackie's another one, right? As far as, and I see these videos about the practitioners, a lot of the movie Kung Fu practitioners, you know, their thing wasn't about the fighting, right? It's about educating and
the art of it, not the martial.
Yes. And you know what? His background is actually, he started off in Peking opera, right?
Did not know that. Jackie Chan? He's an opera singer?
It's like a form of like acrobatics.
Oh, like the spinning stuff? Like the, what's that Chinese event they have every year? You know what I'm talking about? They just had it like last month. Shenyun, right? Is it like that type of style? Is it like...
I think similar, very similar.
That shit's tight, bro. I want to go to one of those events, man. Those acrobats get crazy with it.
See, that's the thing, is that you may not you may not be in the scene, right? But you at least have appreciation, right? You know, I'm not, you know, and when I say you, I'm just saying in general, right? We may not understand things, but you know, that's part of the beauty of the journey. Right. But you know, as far as fitness and things like that and athleticism and stunts, and you know, that's great. Right. You know, bring back to where we're at here with learning about martial arts, you know, you learn something from everyone. Right. Sefu Ray told me there was one time I was teaching a student, I'm going to post it on my Instagram, but I used to wear socks that were they're, you know, the cutoff socks that you wear for running.
Yeah.
But I should have worn the socks that went all the way up, right?
Yeah.
And one day he's like, you know, you're a Sefu, pull up your socks.
Have you heard of Food's Gone Wild? The page?
Yes.
The socks. The higher the sock, the downer the food.
Oh,
the Sefu. That is my bad. So funny.
Well, see, that's the thing, is that it started making me look, right? It started making me wonder, because again, clothing is something that has a lot of meaning to us, right? It's personal. You know, I got a lot of, you know, I didn't think about the old school 1776 look, you know. There's been a lot of uses of socks, right? And so I don't want it that much, but you know, it's what it is to you, right? And especially a lot of these foods, right? The homies, I understand, you know, it's a way of self-expression. And yeah, you know, as long as you're not hurting anyone or offending anyone. That's the other thing too, is the way I train is I've never had to with Wushu, we had our training gear, right? We had our pants and we had our shirt. Right? I never had to wear a traditional, I think they call it Ifu clothing, the traditional kung fu gear, right? Attire. I didn't do that until I started teaching at a school, right? And that was kind of just to set the presence, right?
Yeah, you're talking about like the silk shirt. Like in Vietnamese, we call it like a uyai. I don't know, in Chinese, probably something similar, but yeah.
And that's where, you know, again, we can go into a lot of different topics, right? Being a American practitioner as opposed to, you know, and even then, you know, my background, my parents and my family's from Haiti, right? So my background, but I was born here and here in Cali, but understanding culture, right? And things like that. So one of the things I always try not to do is culturally appropriate, right? That's why I get questions about things like your lineage and things like that. Everything I teach has been taught to me, and I teach it and spread it like my instructors would have wished, right?
I feel like the cultural appropriation thing, it's not like a big deal with Asians. We don't care about that. You know what I mean? We don't care if you like dress with the uye or if you learn the martial arts.
This is where I think perspective comes, right? And you're learning, right? And I think that's great. But having perspective, right? Like for instance, there was one video that someone had told me that there was a kind of a social media account that someone took a video of me doing Tai Chi, right? And this was out when I was in like the Diamond Bar area, right? And I have a lot of neighbors. I've lived in predominantly Chinese neighborhoods and communities, and it's been great. But someone was taking I would have neighbors come by and stop and watch me doing the Young style form, and one person took a video, and then another person came by and they were like, "Hey, I saw you in the video." Yeah, so it's like, you know, like,
Yeah.
And I think I was just, you never know who you're gonna, you know, make happy. Like you were saying, right? People are glad that you're sharing things, sharing ideas, sharing culture, acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I feel honored, right, and privileged, right. And so part of that is, you know, and again, it's like, it could be a little touchy here, there, whatever the case may be. But, you know, I've never had a problem with what I've taught as far as like legitimacy. You know, one of the things is, you know, I tell students, you got to figure things out in terms of, I show you the movements, you do the movements, and you have to spar and figure out how to really apply, right? Like for the first Eagle Claw form, you know, when we started doing forms, my instructor would show me the forms, and then I try to apply it, right? And it's like, you know, how are you going to catch someone's punch, right? Boom, boom, right? You know, so then I had to learn other techniques, like maybe feinting, right? Whatever the case may be, or learning how to, if the opponent isn't, if you're the person you're sparring with, if your attacker isn't gonna attack first, right, or if they're not giving you something, then it's like yin and yang, right? You either push or you pull, right? And then you get into more like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, right? And it's like, okay, now if someone really doesn't want to give you something, you can just pull them into your guard, right? Or pressure, whatever the case may be, right? And yeah, I think it's just part of the journey, especially martial arts here in the United States, right? Because we live here, you know, it's developed. I think you have such a we're so fortunate to be able to get all this input and then develop, right?
Yeah. So speaking on martial arts and developing, I mean, what got you started how'd you get started with all this? Because it seems like you've been doing it for a long time now. Did you just know a guy that did Kung Fu and taught you the way or something, or a neighbor?
Part of it.
It was all the Bruce Lee movies, wasn't it?
That serves as the inspiration, right?
Right.
And it even goes into like what I plan and like overall goal and why I do some of the things that I do. And I know I've given lots of shout outs, but shout outs to mom, shout out to dad, and to the fam, you know. But, you know, we couldn't afford martial arts growing up, right? I asked to do martial arts. Like, they asked, like, they wanted like $300 or something. I was like, that's it.
Back then, that's like $600 today, you know?
You know, forget it.
Yeah.
And that's the story for a lot of kids growing up who either come from working family homes, right? Come from you know, whatever the case may be. If you're not from a more privileged, you know, life, or if your parents just don't have the means, that's it. And so what it did is, because you know, you mentioned I'm not a lifelong martial artist, right? And that's another thing, right? I'm a lifelong fighter. Yeah. Got my first fight when I was in kindergarten, right? It's just funny. I'm like, kindergarten fight. But you know, it's it's funny because you look back at things. I've always been more of a chill guy and things like that. But I had a kid who he would always run up and then just kick me. Like, I'm like,
Happens.
Okay. So, he does it 2 or 3 times. And I'm like, so then the last time he does it, I'm like, okay, screw this. And then I push him back and I go into this RoboCop mode and I'm like walking over him and I kick him. And I'm walking again and I kick him. And then as soon as like 2 seconds later, the teacher comes in. She's like, why are you kicking this kid? I was like, one thing is I always remember that story because it teaches you perspective. You never know, right? Hey, self-defense is a real thing. Right?
Yeah.
But it's also within limitations. And again, you never know. You never know. So sometimes you only get part of the story, right? But my journey, right, and where it started to study martial arts, it actually started when I went to the library, okay? And I got a judo book, right?
Sick.
Right, karate and judo, right? I learned how to make a fist, right, and use these knuckles here, right? And again, shout out to my older brother here. He's hardworking guy, right? He's more old school. He's a football player. He played football in high school, played basketball. And there's people who are very into the athletics. That's another thing you can touch on, right? But I know he wasn't going to BS things. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is a guy who benched 315, right? 3 in high school, right? A senior year. So I was like, let me try something out on you. And I just tried to do a hip toss that I read from a book. And I didn't do it all the way. I was like, I held back because he was like, oh, whoa, man, but that at least opened my mind.
Yeah, the power that's in this book.
Yeah. Of martial arts, right? And what's out there. Now, granted, learning those things didn't help, right? In terms of confidence, building your ability to learn, to really stand up for yourself, and then actually knowing how the moves work. That came from the training, right? And also the strength training, right? So, growing up, high school was a challenge. Who didn't get picked on, right? There's on that end, I feel like people develop at different levels. Okay? My development came after I turned 18. I moved out of the house. I went to college. I got on my own.
Where did you grow up in though? Like what area in LA?
Altadena, Pasadena.
Oh, Pasadena. Oh, that's a rough area.
In actuality, Altadena, Pasadena is nice. We're very fortunate to have grown up there. Okay. Not to say that every city doesn't have its roughness, right? Especially where people get shot. I grew up in the 90s where there's a lot of Bloods and Crips stuff. You know what I'm saying? And my mom fortunately, I have a mom who just, pull us away from all that, right? Still listen to rap growing up and, but, seeing fools get shot, seeing fools, get beaten up, right? Thank God I've never seen anyone get shot, right? That's the other thing. I don't try to come out as like the toughest guy. No. I think that's the other thing is that you fight to live, right? Growing up, you always say, they hear this phrase, I don't give a, whatever the F, right? I used to say that too. I thought that was like the superpower, not giving a, until you realize that you do. And that's when you start fighting even more. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, you fight harder for the ones you love than when you don't care about anything. I mean, honestly.
And everything, right?
Yeah.
Put more time into your training, right? Because you care about yourself. Put more time into doing things because you realize, oh my God, how much time did I miss? So there's one message I would send to the younger folks out there is that, there will be a time where you do give a, what, okay? And life can get better as you get older. Okay, don't listen to this thing where I used to think the same thing. Once you're 30, you're dead. Forget it.
I'm 34. Been dead for 4 years. No, but I think you touched on a good point too. Is I had a similar situation when I did Taekwondo from when I was young. I think I started around the age of 10, but it was hard because it was expensive, dude. And there's times where my mom had to take me out of training just because she couldn't afford it, And at that time, that was during the whole Taekwondo craze. So it was they were charging so much, bro. I remember it was $200 a month, just for just the basic classes. So yeah, there's definitely gaps that I had to stop going just because we couldn't afford it, But it was always something I cared about, and I figured I'd continue training somehow, some way, whether it was in a garage or something, I just kept it going. But that's something that I think the best message I could give the youth, bro, is if you want to get into whatever it is, jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai, boxing, Taekwondo, Tai Chi, it never hurts to just try, bro. There's a lot of coaches out there with a big heart, and you could probably find someone that'll be like, I'll be willing to train you if you're willing to clean the gym, if you're willing to fight for us. Obviously, don't go to the biggest gym. They're probably gonna be less inclined. If you go to Boxing Works or something, I don't know. They got big overhead, so maybe not. But the smaller gyms, more family oriented ones, I'm sure that there's a lot of good coaches out there. I mean, my coach included. He's helped out so many members. Yeah, that's something that is something that is kind of a bad mark in the community is in America, how much it costs to train. You go to other 100%. Countries and it's a lot cheaper, dude. The countries they come from is a lot cheaper. You go to Thailand, Muay Thai is free. You just go live at a gym and you fight for them, Obviously you get kicked out if you don't win, but I mean, there's ways to learn it. I don't know about Kung Fu, but I can only assume when you go to China, it's probably something they teach you in school, I'm assuming, or something, right?
So there's a couple things. Speaking from what I know, okay. And here's another thing. Hopefully, relations are good, right? When I do have a chance to travel, right?
Yeah. Okay. Right now it's tough.
And again, having the means, right? Being able, so as far as you're going to still compensate teachers, right? A school still has to run.
Yes.
Right. Here in the United States, I have one word. It's called business. Yeah. And I'll tell you, even then, my background's in business, right? I have a background in business and in healthcare. Okay. And that helps me to navigate things. I can tell you tons of stories too, right? If there's one thing people want to do is they want to feel good, they want to feel better, right? But if you're talking about, you can see, and I'm not going to name schools, I'm not going to, but the idea that you can charge exorbitantly for martial arts, right? Because that people are going to pay, or they want to be, even if you're the best of the best, right? You're going to charge people more. And then also kids, right? Knowing that parents want their kids to learn martial arts, and I'll say, that is a big business for a lot of schools, right?
Kids is the most, bro, honestly.
And I don't want to say exploit, but just it's just it's a moneymaker for them.
Yeah, kids class for sure. And I get it, dude. I think, because I know I have good relationships with my coach and other coaches. I get it. It's when you open up a gym, the American dream is you want to make money off your business. You want to be able to chill off it. You don't want to have to be struggling. It makes absolutely no sense to start a business and be struggling. That's kind of the opposite. I just think it's unfortunate that here in America, it's just we don't consider martial arts a necessity. Football and stuff. Football seems to get a lot of money from the state. I wish we could somehow have a fund to go towards martial arts schools.
100%. And you touched on something too. It's yeah, you have to survive. That's why I say that's the other caveat. Pay your coaches.
Yeah, for sure.
It's I call it the investment, right? Because you're investing in yourself, right? You're investing in the gym, right? Everybody trains there. That's one of the great things too. It brings community, and I encourage that.
Yeah. No, that's true. I think most gyms are like struggling from when I speak to people, but you have some that are doing good. I think it really is, this is what I noticed, honestly, at least in terms for Muay Thai and like the MMA gyms, Jiu-Jitsu gyms. The most of the money is going to come from either the kids programs or your like cardio programs, your like cardio kickboxing, your jiu-jitsu for like women, or maybe not women. I don't know how many are doing that, but like your jiu-jitsu for the casuals, right? Not like your elites. They're the ones that pay the bills. So the best advice I can give is if you're going to start a gym, and get like one of those cardio type classes, those fun classes. That's the stuff people like, you know?
Yeah, no. And that's part of it too, is that, I'll knock other people off because they could be doing something that, and I've thought about that in terms of helping other, gym. And that's still something that's on the table that I'm planning, right? Helping other gym owners, improve their schools, right? How do you keep things running, right? There's other ways to monetize so that you can focus more on teaching and providing experience instead of like seeing everyone as a dollar sign, right? And I'm just saying that as from experience, right? Because if you're in that position where you just got to eat and keep things going, then it gets tougher. So whatever skills you can learn, that's the other thing, is learning these life skills, right? Because you see a lot of fighters get into MMA, right? These martial arts, they beat the bodies up, right? And then what are you going to do, right, for long term?
Yeah.
And I'm not even getting that discussion. Like, there's a lot of things, but to say that money and finances isn't a part of, martial arts or things like that, like there has to be, there's a middle ground, right? And even as an adult, I just did a video talking about like one of the reasons I started martial arts at the age of 24. Okay. To officially start training, right? And went to the school and said, you know what, I want to learn. So it gives hope to those who, if you think you're too late, no, right? Like Warren Buffett said, last best time was 10 years ago. Next best time is now. Right?
Yeah. It's never too late.
Warren Buffett said that. I just, it's one of those things that just gets recycled. But yeah,
it's never too late. And as a martial artist, anyways, you should be, if you want to be a true martial artist, you should be picking up new skills as you age anyway. So as you get older, you should be comfortable with going to a different gym and picking up like a new style. I mean, even if it's going to be within the same martial art, like let's say Muay Thai, if you want to be a lifelong Muay Thai fighter, practitioner, you should still go to a different gym and get, train with different people. I think, in my opinion, I know it's such a touchy subject. Even my coach will probably tell you that he disagrees because he likes when, obviously, he's more traditional. He likes when people stay at the gym, and for I get what his reasoning is. It's like you pick up bad habits at another gym, or they kind of encourage habits that you're trying to work out at your gym. I get it, but I think it's important, bro, because you go to different gyms and you just see different looks, different styles, and the friends you make. I like making friends. But yeah, I'll go to a gym where it's like they're like, okay, our gym, Frankie, he's really big on the Dutch style right now. That's kind of been our thing for these last few camps. I'll go to another gym. Maybe they're more traditional. Maybe their thing is a lot of rangy things, teeps. It'd be cool to learn, add to the repertoire. But yeah, dude, there's no reason to be scared to start late, whether you're 40, 50.
No. And you've got me inspired too, in terms of diversifying the style. I gotta find a Muay Thai gym. Start just learning a couple things, right? Just a couple things. My boxing, there's a couple boxing gyms around me. And here's the thing, is that if your style is going to be your style, whatever you train in, right? But you can always learn a couple things, right? So, not the dark, right? Yeah.
Sometimes it's not even related to the actual technique. Sometimes it's like a mindset. You meet another coach and the way he thinks is different. And you're like, I got to apply that thinking to my life, my training. You know what I mean?
Here's the thing is, I actually went to a seminar with Rob from McDojo Life.
Oh, right? Dude, I wanted to meet that guy. He told me, I was talking to him online. I remember he was telling me he's going to do a seminar out here and he's doing a movie or something, but it went out my head. I forgot about it. But yeah, Rob.
It's because you see a lot of people online, right? And obviously there's different personalities and things like that. You always want to meet the person or see how the person is in real life, right? There's this idea, right? And I met the guy, fantastic individual,
Uh-huh.
fantastic. And kudos and support on his mission. Has a lot of things in terms of like another one who's helped to expose a lot of the stuff that a lot of fakeness in martial arts.
The fakeness and the taking advantage of the students is a big one, dude. Very
100%.
common. Yeah.
100%. And even going into some other areas that are very important, right? But even then, like, I reached out to him. There was something going on online, and afterwards he's like, okay, well, you have an open, blah blah. Take a look at my videos, blah blah. So when he was coming into town, and I had a chance to like go to one of the seminars, I was like, okay, let's do it, right? Because here's the thing, I get a lot of flack online about the martial arts, blah blah. I understand. I've never had a problem at any of the gyms I went to. I started learning the jiu-jitsu and the wrestling. I actually started off with wrestling at my grad school, right? At the wrestling, we had a wrestling and jiu-jitsu club, right? So that's where I learned how to break the guard, which I still, one of the ways, right? Because there's multiple, right? But that way I learned at the wrestling club, I still use to this day for my buddy Aaron, right? And then through 10th Planet, right? And that's another thing too, right? It was another experience.
Shout out 10th Planet.
100%. 100%. That's another thing, Joe. Went to 10th Planet. I love 10th Planet, right? It was a different experience, right? Because here's the thing is, and I love the layout, when I first went there, I was thinking like more traditional, right? I didn't know, right? I didn't know they focused mainly on
no gi. I don't think they have any gi actually. Do they have gi? Yeah, they do. And then I've seen 10 Planets. They'll have like kickboxing classes too sometimes and stuff. Like Muay Thai instructors will go train there. It's a cool school. It's definitely a very modern take on martial arts though.
Yeah. As far as just it's kind of like you dive in and you just figure things out, right? You just build up from there, right? Yeah. And I can't speak for other schools, right? But and you kind of go on, I kind of go on other tangents here, but ultimately, what you're learning has to have legitimacy, right? Has to pass the test, just grow from there.
I think if you want to see it as if you're trying to use the martial art in a competitive way, like maybe not even competing, but just to say that it's like I'm one of the best, or I know that I can hang with the best, then yeah, you gotta be battle tested, right? I think there's nothing wrong with if you want to just study an art just to do it, just to maintain the healthy lifestyle of it, But then at the same time, don't trick yourself into thinking you're doing something else, right? I think that goes back to this conversation we had earlier about like the traditional martial artists, that they kind of stay in their bubble. They kind of discourage you from trying other arts or even competing in other avenues. That's one thing about you is like, I saw that you competed in like, it was a Muay Thai or kickboxing thing, right? And I love seeing stuff like that. It's like, you're a Kung Fu guy. That's your base. There's no disputing that. And there's no shit to talk about that. But it's like, you're willing to be like, all right, let me go try Muay Thai and see if I can apply some of these things that I've been doing in Kung Fu and Muay Thai, right? And maybe you can, maybe you can. Then maybe you're like, all right, so maybe this didn't work out. What can I change to make it better? So so it can work next time, And I think that's a beautiful thing, man. That's a hard thing to do, bro.
No, 100%.
It takes looking in the mirror. A lot of us don't like looking in the mirror.
No, thank you. And here's another thing, Mo. I'm not gonna name the instructor, but I've seen a traditional instructor very, very, very effective and good at what he does. But as soon as I saw them get taken down to the ground, it looked like a fish out of water. And I was, and you start understanding these things. It's like, okay, well, once you start learning ground fighting, you realize like, yes, the ground does utilize the legs, right? We're so used to, if you're doing stand-up, you're so used to kicking and pushing off the ground. You do push off the ground when you're on the ground, but there's a certain nuance that comes with it. Okay. First, especially even, so my background in high school, I did water polo. Right, I did water polo for 4 years. I did swimming for 4 years. Right, so understanding sports. And here's the thing: we didn't have subs. Our team was dwindling, so we had to play entire games.
Yeah.
You know, when it comes to sports, I understand that aspect, right? The athleticism, right? MMA tends to bring a lot of athletes, right? From football players to non-football players, right? But people who either they've been training for years, right? They have the strength and things like that. So, it's just part of the journey. Here's the other thing too. I competed in Naga last year.
Yeah.
Right.
How'd you do? Did you place?
Didn't place. So it was. It's one of those humbling experiences.
Yeah, that's
right?
a tough one too, though. Naga.
Oh,
Yeah.
I got I got something whooped. Right. And so I think that's part of. There's a lot of things, right? I think part of it is the learning experience. Like I'm always having fun. I'm always, I know if I don't win something, if I don't win, I'm going to go back to the lab, right? The other thing too is, you get experience with different opponents and things like that. I'm surprised at how many people want a cheering crowd behind them.
Some people need that.
Yeah. I just think because here's the thing is that, especially I went there by myself, as far as support, I was training and I have everything. I have my, I was training at 10th Planet in Westco prior to the competition. Right. But as far as when I compete, and this is part of what I do, I also support other martial artists. Right. One of my first tournaments, it was hard to get any support, right? Even from the school owner. Right? And there's a whole story behind it. And respects to the school, it was a great experience and the owner and things like that. But, having that support, having, if you're competing against the number one contender, you're the underdog. You have to expect, even in real life, right? You got to expect that people are going to not like you, spit on you, whatever, right? And you have to get past that mindset.
Yeah.
So that's just something in general. So
your team didn't come out and corner you or anything?
So that's the other thing is following more of the traditional martial arts. When I train, I just go to train. Mm-hmm. I go to learn, right? Even at this age, right? As far I'm 44, when I started 20 years ago, it was just a different ball game, right? A lot of my training is one-on-one with a more traditional kung fu schools or traditional kung fu training, and I've sparred with a lot of people from different styles, right? Whether it's Kempo or karate or whatever the case may be. And here's the other thing. I know MMA is a different beast. Competition is different. Mm-hmm. Right. And if you're coming from the MMA schools if you're coming from a Kung Fu school or something like that, and even my instructor, right? My Eagle Claw instructor, he didn't teach a lot of people, right? He didn't have a big school. He's a doctor now. Right? He's
Dr. Sefu.
Which is another thing, right? So my background is in healthcare, right? And it just gives you a different perspective, right? I do want to continue and I do want to continue the jiu-jitsu training, right? I'm just a white belt, right? But if that's something, it's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen by next year, right? Hopefully into my 50s, it's something I can.
Yeah, you can definitely do it when you're in your 50s for sure. But I think that's odd that your team didn't come support you, man. I mean, how long have you been training at that 10th Planet for? Were you able to build relationships with people, or did you kind of sign up before you actually kind of? Did you? Oh, okay, let me start. My first question is: did you get the okay from your coach to compete?
No.
Okay.
This is just something I just signed up for.
Okay, yeah, they don't like that at all. That's kind of taboo in at least the martial arts gyms I've been to. If you sign up to another gym or you sign up to a compete and you don't tell your coaches or ask, they kind of like hate on that.
No, and so that's part of understanding the culture.
Right.
And it's just different, right? Part of the Kung Fu journey, for instance, and this is the way I think everyone is, especially myself, right? I'm not, I think, for instance, with my Sefu, it was a different time in my life. I was able to put in the years to train with one instructor. Even now, if I train, I that's one of the reasons why I like that system, because I trained in West Covina. My first 10th Planet was in Burbank. I trained there for about a year, and on and off. Right? It was under Jared Carlston. And here's the thing is that I've never had any issues training at any of the gyms. I don't come in as a hothead. I don't come in trying to overpress. I do notice that, here's one thing. I do notice, if you're rolling with people, yes, like, especially if they're newer or whatnot, they don't have the finesse, right? Everybody's trying to get their first submission, even if it hurts, the other person. Right? Not everyone.
The control comes as you progress in the ranks. Especially new people, they rely on their strength, their youth, rather than skill.
And then the higher belts, you can definitely tell
more flowy,
right? And the setup, right? And that's the thing is that with the ground and the jiu-jitsu and the grappling, it's not something that I mainly focus. But I'm glad that I have experience. I'm glad I've trained, and it's fun rolling around. I go into class, rolling with different people, and but that's something that I think later on down the line, understanding more about the culture, understanding more.
Very culty. Jiu-jitsu is I feel like jiu-jitsu is like one of the cultier ones, So just the way that, it's just the way that the Gracies kind of like made it into like more of a mainstream art. I guess kind of gives the impression of like this is kind of like a cult. You know what I mean? I love it though. Don't get me wrong, but I recognize it. But one thing I do want to add though, I think if you were to do another jiu-jitsu contest, I think if you were to get the okay from your coach, I think the experience will be a lot different, because then they're gonna have they'll set you up with someone that'll be closer to your level. They'll be able to kind of negotiate who your opponent's gonna be, right? And two, they'll be able to put you in a camp. That's important. It's like it's good for the mental, it's good for your body, and then it's good for like he'll set you up. Usually, like is your lower belt, they'll probably give you like like rather than having the coach kind of work with you, he'll give you with another. Maybe a brown belt or a black belt. He'll be like, here, work with this guy, get him ready for his camp, And so you'll have that bond, you'll have that person in your corner that for the last 6 weeks, you've been seeing him every day with, It's a different experience, I think. I feel like you didn't get the right experience, I feel bad,
No, I know, 100%.
Yeah.
But to me, that's all good.
Not to say it's a bad experience. I'm just saying it's different when you have your team with you. You got your flag, and it's like, and you know that you're like, these are my people. They're here to help me succeed. It feels good, dude. It helps to have an ally in there.
100%. And even then, I think, most important thing is keeping the skill, right? And again, life is going to present us in different situations. I have friends who, during COVID, right, during lockdowns, right, things like that, the schools were closed. So their excuse or whatever, I can't train. And I can understand that, right? Yeah. But at the same time, you should have a method where you can always work on things. I know there's certain exercises you can do, practice triangles, whatever the case may be. But I do feel like you're not as limited on, especially on the stand-up arts and the traditional arts on that end.
Yeah.
So and trust me, I heed everything, right? So just looking at things from different perspectives, and also that the training's not over, right?
It's never over.
100%. Well, see, that's the thing too, is that you have these jujitsu practitioners, right, get into, and it's obviously the sport and things like that, but how do you promote lifelong practice? How do you promote longevity, right? And that's kind of where the healthcare comes in. So
health is wealth, baby, and martial arts is martial arts is and health is go hand in hand. Well, martial artists are some of the healthiest athletes you'll meet, bro. You know what I mean? Because you have to be if you're trying to not get beat up. You want every edge you can have. Diet, exercise, all that.
100%. 100%.
I did one of the coolest things that you see at the gym is when you see people's growth, right? It's like obviously the fighting is cool, bro. Seeing the fighters, get trophies and all that. That's cool. I love. That's one of my favorite things about fighting and all that martial arts. But the other thing, dude, is I like seeing just the self improvement that comes from the individual, just the regular people that come in, And people most of the time they're like out of shape. They're just trying to lose some weight, or they're depressed and they're just trying to do something to kind of take their mind off things. And just seeing them flip, dude. I've seen people come in with depression and they're shy, and then all of a sudden they have like all these friends, It's like they got like 30, 40 new friends, and they have these friends. Like this one chick that I'm thinking of in particular is Hustle, dude. She's one of the nicest people I've ever met. But she's very quiet and shy. She used to come in with her brothers, and she for a while she wouldn't come in without them. And then her brothers stopped coming because they just don't want to do it anymore. And she continued to do it by herself because she liked it. And then in like a year, dude, she like everyone was friends with her, and I'm friends with her. I'm talking to her, and I thought about it. I had this thought where I was like, dude, in no world would we ever be friends. She's like this very well spoken, educated, like, nipped, this one, just clean person, right? I'm tatted. It's like my vocabulary is, vulgar as fuck, and I'm just like, in the real world, I was like, I don't think we would have ever became friends, but this place right here gave us the opportunity to actually get to know each other and see who we really are, And I think that's beautiful, bro. And that's my favorite part about going to a gym is the self growth, right? Is seeing things like that, No,
100%, 100%. I can say martial arts in general, right, is a stress reliever, right? I can say from experience that during times of like strife, like there was something that was going on with racial tension and blah, blah, right? And at the time I was at 10th Planet in Burbank, right? And the only thing I can just remember is that when you're in class, everybody's there for the same reason. Everything just gets left at the door. People want to just train, want to roll. They want to, whatever the case may be. Right. So that I feel is very key. And I'm glad that just to have that experience.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So 100%, right? And it should be, right? Martial arts should be a unifier. I think, like in all sports, you're gonna have the, crap, right? You're gonna have the talking, right? But as long as people understand that's one aspect, and that has its place, and right, there's a place for other things, right? That's so just to be able to separate that, just martial arts, and you had touched on earlier that. We call it accessibility, right? Being able to get into the martial arts. And like, if someone's teaching a style, right? Say you have a Kung Fu teacher here, and maybe that's not what your kids want to learn exactly, right? But they have access to it, right? For right now. Learn what you can.
Definitely.
Learn what you can.
Yeah, learn what you can now. Get the skills you can acquire, and maybe you can trade those skills for something you want to trade them for, I'm sure there's a boxer out there that might be one day might be like, hey, can you teach me how to kick? And just be like, all right, can you teach me boxing?
100%.
That's how we did it when I was in high school, bro. I was, me and my other friends were trading martial arts, right? Like this fool that he did wrestling, and I was like, I'll teach you some taekwondo if you teach me some wrestling, Or like that Muay Thai friend, he taught me Muay Thai because, he didn't really care about learning taekwondo. He just wanted to beat me up. It's like I just need a sparring partner,
I was gonna say that's a very humbling experience, right?
Yeah. Oh, dude, I remember when I got beat up by this guy. He bought me a beer. We were 15, right? We were like 15, so he got beer from his parents' fridge. After we were drinking a beer together, after he beat me up, my face was all swollen, and I was like, "I'll be back tomorrow, same time."
For sure.
Dude, I remember for the longest time too when so me and him, a couple friends would train in his backyard, and all they kept telling me was I was tough, just because I would get beat up and keep like I wouldn't give up. That's basically saying you suck, but you got heart. And it's like a backhanded compliment, I guess you could say. You know what I mean? But then as time continued, now it's like obviously like, you have the skill, and they won't tell me that anymore. But I just remember going from people telling me like, yeah, you're tough, to like finally telling me like, damn, you're good. Just that feeling was like, yeah, good, finally. I worked so hard all these years.
100%, man, 100%. And here's the thing too: is the eyes don't lie, right? I think you have to take truth into everything, right? But I'm surprised how many people. One, I don't think you should underestimate anyone. And even when we were running school, like there was, we're in Macchiato, there was M3 Fight Club right down the street. And there was a Taekwondo school down the street. And I tell all the students, check out all the schools, see what works. You got grappling MMA here, it's okay. Go check it out. And the funny thing is that people would go to all the schools and then they come back to the Kung Fu school. They come back to where we were teaching at, and then they sign up. Yeah. And it blew my mind.
Yeah. What's the school that you're teaching out of?
So this was out of, so right now, I'll tell you right now, I have a gym out in San Fernando, and we're actually going to be switching to a new gym here, right? So a lot of what I do now is just private with past students, and just really small focus. Okay. When I was talking about, I taught at Montrose Martial Arts. It was a Kung Fu school that the previous owner was married to the school owner, and then they separated. The owner went and started his own school, and there's an incident too that happened with me and the previous owner, and it goes into like attitude. And I'm very calm, right? I don't try to like start anything with anyone. I always try to figure out what the situation is, and then if you need to, right? Here's the thing: we started this school from scratch, right? And it was my first teaching, like first time really teaching, having a school, putting myself out in public. Is what we offer, and we built up from there, right? I would spar all students. A lot of it is stand up, so you're trying to demonstrate things. And one of my favorite things that would happen is obviously there's always people trying to test you, right? And either it's like when you ask someone to throw you a strike. One of my favorites is when
too hard. They actually throw it for real.
They throw it quick, or they try to catch you off guard. Yeah, right, and that's. Luckily, in all the years I've been teaching, I have never been caught off guard, and I had to watch it myself, right? If I'm going to ask, but there should be, obviously you're expecting a level, like, so mentally you have to prepare yourself. And I'll tell you this, the students who did that got it twice as hard. I was thinking of that.
Yeah, I was going to say, and whenever I got to teach a class, if I'm asking someone to demonstrate something, if I'm holding for them and they swing hard, I'll just stop and be like, what are you doing? Like we're trying to show the class something, or you're not here hitting pads. You're showing the technique that I'm telling you to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. But everyone should have a right to see if to test your legitimacy, to test if what you do works. And I think here's the other thing too. There's a lot of factors that go into it. That's why I always have an open hands policy. You can come to school. Test, whatever the case may be. A lot of students I spar with, they just end up becoming students, right? And I haven't had an issue, but that's also part of it too, is that as an instructor, you always have to be improving your skill, right? I always say students help you to maintain your skills, right? Because you're always beating them up. So you're like, okay, I know. Keeps you sharp, right? But to get to that next level, you want to, right? Even Jet Li said, right? He had like 12 or 13 instructors. And again, he's one of he knows his Kung Fu, he knows martial arts, right? But, that's why I'm under the movies and things like that. But the concept is still the same, right? A lot of these fighters, right? You don't know if someone's doing. professional fighters, right? Perspective doesn't hurt. So that's where I'm at, right? In terms of, I realize there's a certain plateau, and I'm trying to get to the next level.
Yeah. Yes. You gotta self-improve, baby. Everyone at home, you gotta self-improve. All right, Sefu Carlo, you mentioned some stuff you wanted to bring up. I don't know if we went through everything. I know you want to talk about the finances of the gym. We kind of brushed on it, but is there any tips and tricks you might have for struggling gym owners?
Main thing is just basic business principles. It's harder if you're solo, right? One of the things that worked with the school is we school owner did the administrative stuff, right? And me and there was two other instructors, one other instructor at one time and then two, but we just focused on the classes, right? I think part of it too is that the people are going to be coming in for multiple reasons, right? There's obviously defending yourself is a big thing, right? There's going to be people who want their kids to compete, right? There's going to be people who want their kids to just kick some ass, right? People who want their kids to learn the values, right? And the more you know about yourself, the better you can position yourself. Because that's the other thing too. I'm fortunate enough to have a place to teach and but there's a lot of great instructors who don't, right? Who deserve a school, right? That's why I don't take that stuff lightly.
Yeah. Yeah, I think what you said about separating, stick to the skills you have, right? If you're a coach and you open up your own gym, maybe don't spend so much time learning about the business side of things, the financial side. Bring in a partner that maybe they can do that, and that lets you focus on the skills you have. There's no reason to take time away from what you're good at and to start doing something you suck at, because then you're just going to be doing two things half-ass, So do one thing whole ass, bring someone in to do the other part whole ass. I think that's good advice that you brought up. Yeah, and what's funny is when you brought up about your students that come in. My coach told me something a long time ago. He says every time people sign up to the gym, he's always looking at them for one or two things. He's like, he looks to see if someone's running away from something or if they're running to something. And I think it's it's a good point. I think it's important because, right, some of us are running away from things. For me, is like addiction, depression, whatever. Other people are running towards things. Maybe they want to be a champion. Maybe they want to kick some ass, right? Being able to distinguish what place that your new student falls into, I think it's helpful because that helps you guide them towards the direction they need to go in with advice, and setting them up with other students to help them on their journey that can help with that role, right? Like if you have someone that's going through depression, maybe set them up with one of your higher ranking classmates that has battled through depression that can give them advice. If they're trying to be a champion, put them with your champions. But yeah, so compartmentalizing. I think that's what we're gonna go with. New gym owners, compartmentalize your work and your students. Other than that, anything you want to add, Sefu Carlo?
It's a great experience. Again, with the Tai Chi, I started younger, right?
That's all I remember is this stuff. Every time I see it.
It's a great experience, right? I was 24. But in terms of teaching it, a lot of people who are older are going to come, right? It's a great exercise for older adults. I've done workshops at USC, right? But it's not just limited to that. Expand your mind, learn as much as you can. And don't be fooled, right? You have a right to test things out. Right? And when you lose, you win.
The only real loss is if you don't learn. From experience, right? I always tell people, man, the only person you're competing with is yourself. So it's all right if you lost this against an opponent. The real opponent is you. So as long as you felt like you did better today than you did last time, you won, right?
100%. And be open. A lot of the traditional masters, there's certain things, there's certain respects you might try to keep, certain an image you might try to keep, and I feel like that can hurt you in some, right? And just to keep open, I respect people's opinions. I respect your opinion, you know what I'm saying, and insight. And it just helps, right? Helps on the journey.
Yep. I respect your opinion too, Sefu Carlo. Maybe one day I'll come check out your gym. Maybe you can teach me a little bit of Kung Fu.
Anytime.
I'd like to do that. Actually, you know what? If I did do that, I'd love to, if you're okay with it, maybe I could bring a camera and take some footage of the training. I think that'd be tight.
Here's another thing too. If you know anyone who wants to spar with a Kung Fu guy, right? I'm more than happy. Like if with students or just, I love sparring with other styles. So karate, MMA, Muay Thai. I'm not going to go through the whole list here, but
you just like to test yourself.
Yes, and give their students perspective too.
Yes, sir. Yeah, maybe I'll come by. Maybe I can spar students. I'll try the whole Kung Fu stuff out. And like I said, maybe I can bring a camera, make an episode out of it, and you can get some cool footage of some Kung Fu training.
100%.
Anyone at home, thanks for watching. You can you want to plug in your socials and where people can find some of your work?
Yeah, I run a website, selfdefensehub.pro. I'm on Instagram and YouTube and Facebook, the Tai Chi Dude. And that's the only thing. How did the name Tai Chi Dude come about? Right. And I'll tell you, it's because wherever I go, I'm always referred to as the Tai Chi guy. Right. And, Tai Chi guy is kind of classic. And I was like, okay, I didn't want to be the Tai Chi bro. Right. But dude is a very
California. That's what I was gonna say. It reminds me of when I saw your name, dude. I was like, this fool definitely was born out here. He's not a transplant.
For sure. Represent. And also, last thing, more in an Altadena hat. I just want to give a shout out to everyone affected in the fires in Palisades and in Altadena, right? And so they just found someone who was missing. Even for the count, it's maybe like 25, right? Over 25 people. And, I think that's the real true spirit of martial arts, being able to rebuild back. So, shout outs to Altadena, you know what I'm saying? And just stay strong. And if you can help, more than happy, right? There's a lot of us there's a lot of good you can do.
Everyone can do something. So shout out to Altadena. Hopefully you guys recover quickly because it's travesty.
And lastly, can I do one more?
Yeah, do. Mike is yours, bro.
My lady, Joy, love you, babe. Love my kids. You know what I'm saying? SB, Calito, love you all. And my boy Yodel, he always wants to shout us out.
Shout out Yodel. Sick. For those of you, and then some quick messages. If you guys have been paying attention, I've mentioned how we're moving gyms. The move will be complete next Saturday. I believe we'll be having, I think we're going to be having grand opening party. Check us out. Spider Muay Thai, we just recently moved from Santa Ana on Harbor and Warner. We're now in downtown Santa Ana on 4th Street and Main. The Otis building, Floor 3, check us out. We're going to have brand new mats, brand new everything. It's going to be nice. Old location's done. Where we officially gave our keys back yesterday, I believe. Also, quick shout out to the team. We had 5 people competing at IFS on Friday. All 5 took the dub. Drewski fought for a belt on Saturday, and he unfortunately came a little short. But it's always a dub when you see our people on the main stage. So shout out Drewski. And last but not least, I mentioned how we had won a cannabis cup for my work recently. We won a cannabis cup, and then we submitted our cannabis for a state cannabis cup. We unfortunately lost the state cup, but it's all right. They gave us a list of things we got to do to improve. So next year, hopefully you'll see us winning at the state fair. Sacramento State Fair. So other than that, a lot of messages. Sorry guys. I know I've been I've been a little busy lately with the whole gym move. I've been taking over classes last week, and then I got sick. So I'm gonna be trying to do more interviews, post stuff more again, back on our. So yes, Sefu Carlo. Once again, it was a pleasure. It was nice meeting you. I hope we can maintain this relationship because you're an awesome dude, and I'd love to come train with you one day.
Oh no, thank you, Mo. You know what I'm saying? And that's what it's about.
Yes, sir. All right, everyone. Thanks for listening, watching. Goodbye.